How's it going, folks? Stu here. Today's review is hopefully for a nice little gem for you guys, something that I don't think a lot of you will have heard about. I certainly had no idea this film was a thing or existed at all, but it was screening at the London Film Festival, sounded really interesting, so I thought I'd take a little chance on it, check it out, and boy am I happy I did do it, because it actually ended up being one of my favourite films of the festival and one of my favourite films of this year. And that film is Eyimofe, which I hope I'm saying right, or This Is My Desire, which is its English title. It is a directorial debut from twins Chuko and Arie Esiri, and it looks at two different, although interlinked, stories from Lagos of a man and a woman who are going about the process of trying to migrate away from it. They want to migrate to Europe, and each of them, in their own ways, is trying to navigate this strange and difficult world of migration. It's not as easy as just packing your bag and getting out of there, obviously. And the film ends up being a really sort of patient, sympathetic look at these two lives in Lagos, and one which I found myself getting completely and utterly absorbed in. I really loved this film. I was completely blown away by it. And I think one of the reasons I was so drawn to it is that I don't really think I've seen stories like this dived into in the way this film does. So it was a really refreshing and eye-opening look into a different part of cinema I'm not used to seeing, and I love that. It's a sort of debut and film which really does feel like its own little thing, its own sort of section of cinema, and it is very much like a kind of, I guess, slice of life film. Obviously, there is a narrative in that these characters are trying to go through the process of being able to migrate out of Lagos, but it very much feels like in their own ways, we're watching them just sort of go about their lives. I have never spent any time in Lagos, but this film feels like such a genuinely authentic sort of portal into that culture and into that country, and seeing it through the lens of these twin filmmakers here who obviously have a connection to these stories and to Nigeria and Lagos. There's absolutely no melodrama in here at all. It has that real sort of documentary feel to it, which works brilliantly and really reminds me of a filmmaking style of someone like Edward Yang and what he did for Taiwanese cinema, which is the biggest compliment I could probably give to these directors here. If I'm comparing your debut film to someone like Edward Yang, you've done an amazing job. But I found myself in so many places reminded of the way Yang looks at Taiwan through his lens and how he goes about creating these characters that feel so genuine and lived in. Eyimofe, This Is My Desire, really feels like it does a lot of those similar things for Nigeria and Lagos as Yang was doing for Taiwan, and I loved that. I just loved watching these characters feel like they're naturally going about their lives and like we're almost just a fly on the wall of whatever ends up happening within those lives, and the result of that is feeling like you're watching this genuinely insightful perspective. I didn't really want to leave the world of these characters. I would have happily watched a lot longer film, and it is, I think it's like 2 hours long anyway, and I really like the way it goes about showing these two stories. I've seen some people suggest that the going back and forth between the two characters can sometimes feel jarring because it does spend a lot of time with one character and then it will flip to another, and it's not quite as simple as just sort of like 10 minutes with one character, 10 minutes with another, 10 minutes with one, 10 minutes with another, back and forth throughout the film. There's a lot fewer switches between those two narratives than I think you might expect, so you end up getting quite engrossed in one and then it will switch to another, which on one hand I understand why that can feel quite unsatisfying, because as you're starting to get really engrossed in one, it'll flip to another character and you're asked to get back engrossed into them. But ultimately at the end of the film, when it becomes clear that you're not going to get like huge back and forths between these narratives, I think it ends up feeling like a really effective sort of vignette of these two lives. The point of the film, I guess, isn't from a technical editing standpoint that there are these two narratives and how those correlate and the differences from that in an editing's perspective. It's rather that we're just allowed time in our own ways with each narrative, one after the other. So we see the differences and the different ends and perspectives of this story of two people ultimately striving for the same thing but in their own different ways. We see the differences in those by just spending time with them as opposed to obviously cutting between them. I don't know if that's necessarily going to land for everyone, but for me, I thought that worked really, really well. I found both the narratives we end up looking at in the film to be equally as absorbing, and I think the performances are definitely a part of that. As far as I'm aware, there's a lot of first-time actors here, which is brilliant to see, but they all feel so lived in and real, and that's what I think adds to this whole kind of social realism documentary feel, which again reminds me of something like Edward Yang, who himself would use a lot of non-actors in his films for the same effect. And I really like seeing that as well here. And as I said, it all adds to this feeling like you're watching a fully fleshed out, real, authentic world. And as someone from a very different society and culture to that, I loved getting that insight and that perspective. It's just a wonderfully navigated story, brilliantly performed and gorgeously shot. I had such a good time with Eyimofe, or This Is My Desire. Easily one of my favorites of the year. I really can't wait to see it again, but I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it. So if you clicked on this review thinking, I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna watch this review anyway, I hope I've done enough to convince you to check it out whenever you can get the chance to check it out, wherever you are. Get it on your watch lists, and honestly, I don't think you're gonna regret it. But what about you guys? Did you have the chance to check out the film on any of the festival circuits this year? If you did, I'd be really interested to know what you thought about it. Drop a comment below, we'll have a little chat. But as usual, if you did enjoy this video and you want to see me talk about more shit, go ahead and click subscribe. A couple more thoughts coming out from the film festival, so you don't want to be missing them. Click on the subscribe button. See you guys soon for some more thoughts on more films, but until then, stay beautiful, stay safe, and make sure this film is on your watch list. God damn it. Write it down right now. Do it.